Today I'm going to give you a look inside my screenwriting process. We'll start with coming up with an idea for the movie. We'll then move into some screenwriting tools that I find incredibly valuable when it comes to breaking story, and then stick around to the last part of the video because I'll share how I outline scenes so that when it comes to writing the first draft of the film, I feel like I have a clear idea of where I'm going, so I don't feel overwhelmed or intimidated. I'm actually quite excited to get started. So if you're a beginner screenwriter or just curious about screenwriting in general, I hope you find the following phases valuable. Let's get started. If you're struggling to come up with an idea for a movie, I once heard Judd Apatow say that it helps to draw on cinematic moments on your life and then figure out what story you want to tell from there. I have a list of these ideas on my computer, and I find that after time there's one or two of these ideas that keep coming to the back of my mind and I can't get them out of my head. And then I get excited about these ideas, and then one idea usually rises to the top of the list, and when this happens, I've got a good indication that now's a good time to start working on the screenplay. At this point, my idea is all over the place though. So it helps to write a logline because it gives me some clarity in terms of the basic direction of where it is that I'm hoping to go with the screenplay. So I typically will invite ChatGPT into this part of the process, and I'll ask it to write a logline from the rough idea that I will present to it. And then I'll ask it to regenerate a couple of suggestions so that I can continue to brainstorm until I'm at a place where I like the direction in which my screenplay is going. So after I rework the suggestions that ChatGPT has offered me and then shape that into a logline that rings true to who I am and the story that I want to tell, I don't jump straight into the writing process. I actually pause and I sit with the idea for a couple of days or sometimes even weeks until it's at the point where I am so excited about it that I just have to plan a writing retreat. So if writing every day is also something that you struggle to fit into your everyday schedule, then maybe planning something like a writing retreat could be valuable to you. So this is how I structure my writing retreat. It's typically a 4-day period, sometimes 5-day period, where I write for typically 2.5 hours to 3 hours a day. The night before I start my DIY writing retreat, I'll create templates of the story circle for the story arcs of my characters, and then I'll also have the beat sheet templates on my wall. When I start the next day, I use the Pomodoro technique to split up my sessions, and I like to tackle 2 projects in different phases during this time. I'm at that point in my screenwriting journey where I've had notes on some of my screenplays, so I'm on draft 2 or draft 11 on some of them, and I always like starting a fresh screenplay during one of the writing retreats as well, because I find that there's nothing like that feeling of writing the first draft of something. There's no judgment, nobody has passed any critique over it yet. It's in a beautiful raw phase, so I like bringing that into my writing retreat. So I'll typically work on a second or how manyth draft of one screenplay while starting a new draft of a new screenplay. So I'll work on one project for 25 minutes, my alarm will go off, I'll have a 5-minute break, and then I'll pay attention to the next project for the next 25 minutes. Now, before I even attempt to start filling out the story circle or the beat sheet, I like to know what the theme is for the movie that I'm hoping to write. So the theme may change. What am I saying? It always changes for me. But I've found that the theme serves as the foundation for the movie. And this is just something that works for me, but the more simpler or concise the theme is, the easier it is for me to write the screenplay. So after I know the theme, what the screenplay is about, then I tend to start with the story circle to flesh out the characters. I do this quickly as I found that going with my gut allows me to avoid overthinking things. Now, after I've discerned where my characters start, what they want, the price they pay for getting what they want, and then where they end up, I then move on to the beat sheet. The next part in my process is working through the beat sheet. The beats act as prompts that guide the journey my character is on. I tend to enjoy the fun and games portion of the beat sheet, but I find that I often lose momentum around the midpoint. I don't know, things get more tricky for me when the bad guys close in, when all is lost, and when there's the dark night of the soul. But this is a helpful tool because I'm able to identify what the main turning points are, but I'm also able to see if there are any obvious holes in my story up until this point. Because this process is typically crammed into 4 days, I find that I'm able to move swiftly through the beats without any any judgment. Also, I'm aware that the first draft of anything that I write is never perfect. So it helps being aware that I'm coming back for a rewrite, or I will be getting notes at some point. And this helps me get through the tricky parts of the beat sheet because I know I'm coming back with some fresh perspective at a later point in time. Once I've completed the beat sheet, the next point in my screenwriting process is forming the scene outlines for the 3 acts of my screenplay. I typically have 4 pieces of A4 paper on the ready, and I jot down Act 1, Act 2A, Act 2B, and Act 3. I then fill out each act with scene ideas. The step outline part is fascinating because there's these ideas that are coming to me that I hadn't thought of when I wrote the story circle or the beat sheet. It's just all of this outlining is making room for really cool ideas. At least they're really cool now. In Blake Snyder's book, Save the Cat, he refers to you having 40 scenes written down before you start your first draft. Now, I can't promise that I stick to 40 scenes. I think I typically have a few more than 40 scenes written down before I start my first draft. But I think it's placebo. I kind of like seeing sticky notes. It makes me feel like I'm productive and like I'm prepared. So it works for me. Anyway, after my scene outline is complete, I will then organize a date and invite my husband to join me, and I will present him with my scene outlines, sort of talk through my screenplay, and then from there I will get my first set of notes. I then like to take some time to let the notes sink in as well as let my story evolve, and then I'll move into the next phase. Depending on the film, I might go straight into writing my first draft, or I may adjust my outline and then present my outline to an industry expert. I find that booking a consultation call with somebody in the know often helps me adjust my outline a little bit further and get it to a place where I feel more confident in the screenplay that I'm going to write. Because let's be honest, it takes a lot of time to write a screenplay, but it also takes a lot of time for somebody to read a screenplay. So it often costs more having a consultation on the entire screenplay as what it would cost if you just booked a session having somebody read your outline. So before I write my first draft of the screenplay, I like to have my outline waxed, because there's nothing nicer for me than sitting at a coffee shop with almost a template of my screenplay sitting next to me, so I can just look at it and then type away. I don't know, it sort of makes me feel confident and helps me cruise through the first draft of my screenplay. So that's a look inside of how I go about starting writing my screenplay. And if this video has been valuable to you, give it a thumbs up. I'll also leave a video for you in the end screen where I actually go about writing a screenplay in 4 days, in 12 hours in total over 4 days. So you might find that valuable, but pretty much all I do is look at the scenes that I've outlined over the 3 acts and just get to it. So subscribe if you'd like to see more content from me in the future. But otherwise, I'll see you in the next video. Take care, guys. Bye.